In the biblical story, in the book of Ruth, two women made their way to Bethlehem. Bethlehem was about 5 miles from Jerusalem. The town of David. Both women are widows. They have no husbands. So their condition is shaky. Also, their fathers have died too, so they are also offering. So these two women are at the mercy of everybody. Because without a husband or without a father, women were vulnerable, very vulnerable. And intended to go and get married. They were vulnerable and at the point of people took advantage of it. If you have no husband, no father, you were a woman, people took advantage of you and you were second class. But 10 years before, there was a famine in the land of Israel, and Naomi went to the land of Moab, west of the Dead Sea. And during this time, Naomi's two sons married two women from Moab, Orpah and Ruth. And we are told that before two fellow them, Naomi's husband died, and the two sons of Naomi died. So these are three women without what? Husbands or sons, or without husbands or fathers. So they are vulnerable at the mercy of it. But then we are told that news came that there was food in Israel. Food in Israel. And so Naomi said, there's food back home, so let me go back to my land. And so she decided to return. And she said farewell to her daughters-in-law, addressing what was foremost in their mind. She said to the daughters, may the Lord bless you, and may you find husbands. You need a husband, eh? Yeah, may you find husbands. She said, but even if I were to get pregnant again, you will have to wait another 20 years or maybe 25 years before you find a husband. If you're going to wait for my sons. You know, women don't like to wait for marriage. They want it to come fast, you know. So she's telling them, but you can't wait for so many years without a husband. And so Orpah returned to Moab, but Ruth said, no, I am not leaving you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die and be buried. And may the Lord do to me more if even death separates from you. And so there's a special bond between Naomi and Ruth, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, which is not normal. You know, mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws tend to, you know what, they tend to, wait, something, right, that is it. But back in the land of Israel now, they go back, and Boaz is Naomi's cousin, relative, and by the Jewish law, the next of kin ought to take the Naomi's daughter-in-law and marry her. So it's like this. If I die, but then the next of kin in my family has the right to do what? Marry Valley. God forbid it. But I'll put that there. Also. But I saw Boaz has a field. He's gleaning the barley. And all the young women are in the field. And Ruth, she goes to the field and she gleans. And Boaz, she captures his attention. She looks nice. And he gives her special treatment. And Naomi recognizes, look, there's something with the chemistry of Boaz and Ruth. Now, she's interested in Ruth that she will have security. And the only way she can get this security that she wants for her is to do what? Is to make sure that she marries, that she gets a husband. So Naomi wants Ruth to get Boaz, or Boaz to get Ruth. And so Naomi sets up the scheme. She says to Ruth, look, bear your skin, smell good, put on the best perfume. Now wash and anoint yourself, put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to Boaz. Wait until he has finished eating and drinking. Look for where he's laying down and do what? And then go into the place where he's laying down. You see how the woman enticed the man. And she said to him, look, when you're going and lay down, uncover his feet. Now, uncover your feet is a euphemism. It doesn't mean to uncover his feet. It means to play with him. And you were getting confused, most probably, and whatnot. And men are foolish, The ladies come and touch their heart and their everything, and they go. You know what I mean? Robert, you know what I mean? Albert, you know what I mean? Right, we all know. Right, and so the nice smells and everything and whatnot. And so she does it. And then Boaz takes Ruth as his wife. That is the basic of the story. But what I want to do this morning is to see what we learn from the story of Naomi and Ruth. I think what we learn from this book is that we are to take the lives of ordinary people seriously. Widows and the poor people in the village, immigrants. The book of Ruth is a reminder that people of faith, and we are people of faith, we are to stand in prayer and friendship and give practical support to all those people in our community who have been displaced. That's what the book teaches. The people of faith, we must give support to all those who have been displaced. We must share solidarity with the people in our community, Barbados, the region, and the world, especially people who experience the trauma of violence, war, people who are forced to leave their lands and go away in search of a better life. We have to show solidarity with the poor, all those in poverty, the homeless. And the book of Ruth says we cannot despise any member of the community. We cannot despise any member of the community. So it is a call to us, the people of faith in our Barbadian society, to identify with the people in our communities who are down and out. I think the book is also telling us that we are to honor and value the humanity of all people. It is foolish to believe and to fool ourselves that we are better than some people and that some people are not as good as we are. In a world where connections to one family group can determine life or death, the book of Ruth teaches that we must be willing to cross boundaries to create friendship. These two women are different in age. They come from different religions and nationalities. The book of Ruth tells us what happens when two people from different social backgrounds decide that friendship is more important than your social class. That's what the book teaches. Friendship is more important than your social class or your nationality or your race or your color or your religion. And it is said to all of us that within the context of friendship, we must not allow education or profession, class, or anything to keep us from establishing a relationship with people, with all people. One of the problems we have in Barbados is that of social class. You know that? And that concept of social class keeps us apart. And we love some and we don't love some. We are kind to some and we are not kind to others. But the book of Ruth says, no. Establish relationships with people not based on class, but on love and compassion and concern. That is something which threatens not only Barbados, but throughout the world. The distinctions in class can prevent people from becoming friends and sharing a genuine relationship. So Ruth says, no, do not allow nationality, or race, or anything of that nature to stop you from being friends and having a relationship with someone. But I think also the book of Ruth also addresses the issue of immigration. You know, immigration is a very hot topic. It was very important in the elections last week in the United States. In Europe, it is also a question being discussed because lots of people are fleeing their countries and going in search of a new life. In many places, there are people who are fleeing to escape difficulties in their country. And as I said, in the recent election in the United States, it was a prominent discussion in the race. Immigration. But immigration in Israel at that time was accepted. And when you read the Bible, Israel was to expect that people would come to its land. And God commanded Israel to treat the immigrants with justice and kindness. This meant that whoever lived in the land of Israel, he or she was under the protection of the Lord equally. Because Israel's laws were God's law. And in Deuteronomy chapter 4:6, we read, "Surely this nation is a great and wise nation." And so when you read it, the book of Deuteronomy says to Israel, you must be kind to everybody in your land, the alien, the citizen, the orphan, the widow, all the people who come into your land. What must you do? Treat them all kindly and love. We see in the land of Israel, the law, it made no distinction between the legal and the illegal aliens. It did not make a distinction between citizens and residents. In Israel, citizenship was tied to the covenant to accept the faith of Israel, of the Jews. But for Israel, whoever entered the land was what? A brother or a sister. And the land of Israel made it possible for the immigrant to become a citizen. I think what the book of Ruth is saying to all of us, that we cannot demonize immigrants who come to our land. As a society, we might differ, but as a society, we must welcome with open hands those who come in search of a better life. I know we might not agree, but the community of faith has to welcome all those who come to our shore in search of a better life. And whoever comes to our land must be treated as a brother or sister, and we cannot discriminate against them, be unkind or disrespectful to them. Everybody who comes to Barbados legally in search of a good life or a better life, and he or she is willing to make a meaningful contribution to our land, we must welcome them without discrimination. and not be unclean. But we in Barbados, we have not been always kind to non-Barbadians. Just a few years ago, we were not very kind in our treatment of people from Guyana. And in some instances, we ran them out. But that is not the way we are to live as people of faith. This is a story of crossing boundaries. This is a story of overcoming prejudice and showing compassion and love to immigrants. And so the book of Ruth tells us how we ought to treat immigrants, people who come into our land, to love them, to care for them, and to be kind. And so it's a challenge to all of us at Mass this morning, to all those who listen. It's a challenge to all of us not to see people from St. Lucia or St. Vincent or Guyana or wherever they come from as coming to take away what we have, or to be suspicious of their motive, but to welcome them in love once they are going to contribute to the life of our nation. And so it's something that I will ask you to consider. Let us welcome those who come to our land. But I think the book of Ruth is also a story about the voices of women. This is an extraordinary story because the voices of Naomi and Ruth, they're not only heard, but the voices of Naomi and Ruth move the story forward. Remember, at this time, women are what? Second class. Women have no rights. They have to take second place, especially if they have no husband or fathers. They live in an environment where a woman who has no male relative to care for them are vulnerable. They live in a society that sees women as nobody, second class. But the story of Ruth and Naomi is an example of the resourcefulness of women who live in a patriarchal society that works against them. This story speaks about the resilience of women. You know, women are not weak. Women are strong. And this story brings out the strength of women. Look at Ruth and Naomi. Are they weak women? Strong and invincible. You know, there's a song that says, I am strong and invincible. Yes. What does it say then to us? That women have strength and character. You know, Barbadian women are strong and resilient. Is that so? Barbadian women. Barbadian women have the capacity to fight and overcome the many obstacles they meet in life. True? True, and hardships. All of us here this morning can say, if not for a woman in my family, I would not be where I am today. Because in most instances, it is the women who have built our families. You know, okay, it might want to be like before your mom or your grandmother or your great or your aunt. And so the story reminds us of the strength and the resilience of women. And we must applaud our Barbadian women who do not give up easily, who do not surrender, who do not lay down and die. Women are special, but Barbadian women are very special. And all of us at Mass this morning, we can attest to the strength of the women who have shaped our lives and made us who we are today. And we are proud of the women of our nation. So the book of Ruth speaks about how we are to treat people from outside. It speaks about the resilience of women. It speaks about how we are to care for our people, the poor. And it reminds us that God is silent. God is not up front in the story. The name of God is not mentioned in the story. But what happened? He's operated from where? From behind the scene. He's not up front. He's operated from behind the scene. But God cares for Ruth and Naomi. And that God cares for all of us in the world who are made in the image of God. And wherever people are willing to extend themselves on behalf of other people and be changed for the better by this encounter, this story reminds us we cannot close our minds, our hearts, and our spirits. That we must always be open. Always be open to whoever we meet in our lives. And that we must do all we can to establish relationships that are based on love and compassion. So may God bless us this morning. And may God help us to follow the example of Naomi and Ruth. Amen.